So as they mentioned, I did have the pleasure of coming to Duke, and it's been fantastic to have the pleasure of being back here. I have enjoyed the North Carolina weather for the last day, got to go to Bullock's and get some barbecue, got to do a little run on Campus Drive this morning and get lapped by Dean Sue, which was embarrassing as it always was. But I want to talk to you today about my journey pre and post Duke, and sort of talking a little bit about entrepreneurship, but also in the corporate context and how you can actually take a corporate journey and integrate it into something that matters to you personally. So starting with me personally, I guess, top left, that's me at 4. I figured out that I was gay when I was 4. Not quite sure exactly how it figured in. I think I had a crush on my PE teacher, Mr. Shadroy. I think that was the tip for me. But I also figured out that being gay at that point was not good, it was different, and I needed to hide it. So I spent the next 14 years in the closet. And it took me being in boarding school, which I think is not up there actually, but I look kind of like that frat guy in the middle. That was me at Duke. Me in boarding school, going to New York and seeing a play called Angels in America to actually shake me out of my closet. There was a guy named Joe the Mormon in that show, in that play. And if you've ever seen it, it's an amazing, amazing show, written by Tony Kushner, who wrote Lincoln. Joe the Mormon basically did what I thought I was going to do. Be the good Southern boy, get married, do all the right things. And I saw it played out on stage right in front of me, how miserable that was going to be for my life. And so right there in the Walter Carr Theater in the middle of New York City, I came out to myself. Now 19 years later, and you can do the math in terms of how old I am now, I'm still coming out. So when you think about coming out, if you're not familiar with it, people think it's a one-time thing. You come out, you're done. It's a constant process. You're constantly coming out. So I came out to my family. They were supportive. I came out to my fraternity brothers. I was a KA here at Duke. They were incredibly supportive. I came out to the guys that I was in Speak of the Devil with. They were incredibly supportive. Fantastic coming out. Really actually had a really positive experience in point of fact. Even my buddy who was a Navy SEAL, who told me that his opinion of gays and lesbians, especially gays, was that they had 2 choices. One was to be lined up on a cliff, and you had 2 choices. One was either jump or be shot. That was his opinion of gays. And then I came out. He amended his opinion of gays. And said that all gays should be lined up on a cliff and be given 2 choices, jump or be shot, except for me and whoever I was dating. So you can imagine the trepidation that my partner and now husband had when he met Spike. So I left Duke and did what I would say 30% of Duke kids do. I went into investment banking, right? You're supposed to do Duke, right? Law, investment banking, and medicine, right? Those are your three choices. So I went into investment banking thinking, okay, this is going to be great. I've gotten the job that I want, and I'm going to enjoy New York City. My second month in the job, my MD called the guy beside me a faggot. My entire world changed. Suddenly I realized that investment banking was not going to be the experience that I thought it was going to be. And so a couple things happened in that moment. One, I went back in the closet. And luckily, I hadn't actually talked to people around me about my personal life. And I started having to lie. Lie about who I was, lie about who I was dating. I had to make up stories. If somebody asked what I did last weekend, I had to say, oh, well, I went out with so-and-so, and make up girlfriends' names. And as a sidebar, the way that I would keep those names straight, no pun intended, was that I would think of drag queen names. That was how I remembered them, so I could think, Gusty Wins, that was who I went out with last night. But that experience actually made me a bit of an activist. And so I started volunteering for gay and lesbian organizations, helping them achieve their missions of LGBT equality. And that's this young lady kissing me here is one of the organizations that I helped co-found 10 years ago called Jeffrey Fashion Cares. I've chaired it the last 10 years, and we've raised almost $6 million for LGBT equality and civil rights. Along the way, I left that first firm in 3 months after my MD had the homophobic slur and went to another investment bank, a smaller investment bank. And from then on, decided that I was not going to be in the closet. I was going to actually be myself. I was going to take 100% of what was in my head and apply it towards my job. And so by doing that, I was able to actually help them win business. I was actually able to leverage my access to a community that my straight counterparts didn't actually have to help us bring in clients, to connect with gay and lesbian CEOs, for example. And that was a turning point for me, and I didn't look back. I switched from investment banking to private banking, and if you know anything about Wall Street, that's a weird thing. Most people don't do that. But I did, and I went to Merrill Lynch, And when you start at Merrill Lynch, if you don't know how the private banking world works, you're basically an entrepreneur. They give you a phone, a desk, a computer, and they say, all right, have at it. You've got 24 months to bring in $24 million of new assets. And if after 8 months you don't have $8 million under management, see ya, take care. So I'm 26 years old, and I've got to come up with a business plan of how I can bring in $24 million in 24 months. And so I thought back, okay, what have I learned? I've learned that I have access to a community that potentially could be good clients. But then if you put another framework around it, I'm not sure how many of you know this, and I was just chatting with the gentleman on the break earlier. Do you know how many rights there are at a federal level that you receive for being legally married? There are 1,049 rights at a federal level that you receive for being legally married. And when people talk about marriage equality and gay marriage and all this other stuff, and people say, leave it to the states, for example, that's a classic thing I hear a lot. So getting married in New York. Getting married in New York has no impact on federal estate tax laws, no impact on gift tax, no impact on citizenship for partners. So when I looked at that from a business model perspective, I saw an opportunity to connect something that I cared about, LGBT equality and civil rights, to something that was actually a business opportunity. So how could I actually bring in clients and help them by virtue of bringing them to Merrill Lynch and doing financial planning for them? So we tested it out. I partnered with those nonprofits that I was partnering with, and we brought in $100 million in the first 12 months. So the model worked. Slightly. After 5 years, we tracked $1.5 billion of gay and lesbian identified assets to Merrill Lynch. We managed 31 LGBT nonprofit organizations with their endowments, helped them build planned giving programs, helped them expand their missions, et cetera. So that was one half of it. That was the business half of it. But the other half that I was excited about was in that time period, Merrill Lynch changed their policies. We added non-discrimination based on gender identity and expression to the Merrill Lynch Global Non-Discrimination Policy. And they did that because of the business opportunity. We were able to get Merrill Lynch to sponsor gay and lesbian organizations where 5 years before, they'd never spent $1 in the gay and lesbian market. So I'd actually become what I like to call an equality entrepreneur, right? I was an activist, and I was able to impact something. I was able to raise some money. That's great. Then I became an entrepreneur, and I was able to potentially bring in clients for me or for my firm. But by becoming an equality entrepreneur, I was actually leveraging the business opportunity to change the corporate opportunity. So that led me to a couple different diversity and inclusion roles, both at Merrill Lynch and Credit Suisse. And I always kind of kept that in the back of my head. How could I make sure that there was a sustainable business opportunity in everything that we were doing as it related to diversity and inclusion? Not just LGBT, and that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, in case you don't know. I actually had somebody say, is that a sandwich? Lettuce, guacamole, bacon, tomato? Education. So after that period in diversity, I had another opportunity to actually go out on my own and start my own business and truly be an entrepreneur outside the corporate context, helping companies with these sort of challenges and how they can connect diversity to business results. And one of the first things that I wanted to do was see if I could replicate the model that I built at Merrill, which was just one company, connecting business to diversity and civil rights, with all of Wall Street. And like John said earlier, how do you get to a big goal? You start with little increments. So I tried to start with little increments. So I got 6 senior bankers together from 6 of the major Wall Street firms and said, if I built a summit, an LGBT business summit, not an HR summit, not a diversity summit, a business summit, would your firms come? Would you participate? Do you think if we talked about gay and lesbian business opportunity, gay and lesbian talent, and ultimately how the Wall Street community could drive LGBT equality forward, would people show up? And the answer was yes. They thought that they would, so we tried it. Well, we had 120 slots, and we ended up having over 200 people attend with 100 people on the waiting list the first year. It grew from those 6 banks to the second year, which was just last year. Bank of America hosted it. Deutsche Bank hosted the first summit. Bank of America hosted the second. And we had 4 sitting CEOs speak at that summit. Prior to that, there had never been an instance, regardless of industry, not just Wall Street, where more than one CEO had ever spoken out about LGBT civil rights. And last year at Bank of America, we had 4. We had Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America. We had Lloyd Blankfein, the CEO of Goldman Sachs. We had Paul Singer, the CEO of Elliott Capital, which was the first hedge fund. We had John Viemeyer, the CEO of KPMG. Sidebar kind of story, we were in the green room getting mic'd up beforehand, and these 4 gentlemen were standing around me, and I kind of had a moment. I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? I have these like 4 titans of business here, and suddenly I've gotten them together to talk about gay and lesbian equality. That's kind of bizarre. And Lloyd Blankfein looks at my, he's the CEO of Goldman, looks at my name tag, and it says Todd Sears, OOTS. And Lloyd says, Oots, what's Oots? And I said, well, Lloyd, it's out on the street. And he said, well, thank God it's not the out on the street, because then it'd be toots, and that'd be awkward. Then I knew that we were going to actually be okay. After that summit, we actually got press from all of the fact, well, because of the fact that all these senior leaders were standing up and talking about this. We got press as far as Japan. LGBT organizations were able to actually use this visibility to say that their mission actually did make business sense. I asked Lloyd Blankfein, had he lost clients because of his vocal stance for marriage equality, for example? And he actually thought about it and said, yeah, he'd lost one, but he didn't care. He thought it was worth it. That was huge. We brought together competitors in every other sense of the word and made them collaborators from an industry perspective. We ended up launching Out on the Street in Europe last fall. We brought another 4 CEOs together, and a chairman, an Olympian, and the deputy prime minister of Montenegro, all coming together to talk about why LGBT civil rights made sense from a business perspective for them. So all told now, today, Out on the Street has 15 financial services firms representing $1 trillion in market capitalization with 1.5 million employees working in 174 countries. And what I'm excited about is that in addition to having that global reach, we're actually launching Out on the Street in Asia this fall in Hong Kong. It'll be the first ever LGBT summit in Asia. And I'm excited about it for lots of reasons, not the least of which that the political climate in Asia, especially in Hong Kong right now, is not friendly to gays and lesbians. In Singapore, it's illegal to be a gay and lesbian. And in any number of countries in Asia, it's illegal. So I'm excited for all of these companies and their CEOs and their senior leaders to come in and say, this matters to us from a business perspective. Here in the United States, for example, I'm sure you saw something about the Supreme Court talking about gay marriage. Maybe, 1 or 2, yeah. You might have noticed that there was an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief that was filed with over 180 corporations signing on, saying that marriage equality mattered to them. 2/3 of our Wall Street banks signed on for that, more than any other industry. More than any other industry, we have tax equalization for domestic partner benefits, which if you don't know, legal federal recognition prevents you from being taxed for having health care benefits. Because there is not that legal recognition, gay and lesbian couples pay $1,100 more annually in taxes. All of these things outside of the religious context, all of these things are civil rights issues. And the banks are looking at it and saying, this matters to our employees. This is costing us money. This is a business challenge. We can't recruit. We can't retain the best talent. And ultimately, as an organization, that's what we make. So all of that to say, I've come up with a bit of a new equation. I call it return on equality. And the concept is, how can you take an equality entrepreneur, someone like me, you, anyone else that has a passion about something civil rights related, it doesn't have to be gay and lesbian civil rights, this works with lots of different pieces, and partner with a corporation. I know Mitt Romney would probably hate me saying this, but if you think of his quote, corporations are people, right? I don't think he meant it in this context, but they actually are. If you can take the people that make up, yeah, you like that? Yeah. If you can take the people that make up a corporation, engage them around something that matters to them personally, whether it's the fact that they have a gay or lesbian child, whether it's the fact that they've come out 30 years into their career, whether it's the fact that they understand that they need to be visible, active allies to attract the best talent and to win clients, whatever the case may be, you can bring them together and then add it to the factor of you, which is the individual that's actually going to drive that change. You can actually bring these things together and make change. And so I hope you'll actually think about that. Not everybody can be an equality entrepreneur. Not everybody can be a regular entrepreneur. But a lot of you will go into corporations. A lot of you will be in institutions. Think about how you can make the institutions, the corporations, wherever you land next, work for you and to actually drive change. Thank you.